Hey, welcome back to the stash. Your eyes do not deceive you. We today potentially have on our hands an actual decent modern day ASM release. I'm as shocked as you are, but you gotta stay with me on this one because man, where we left off with Kelly was so, depressing. It left me feeling empty, jaded even. But here today, in the present, Justina Island made her debut on the book, a writer that, from what I've seen, is liked by few, but hated by many. And however, going into this though, I tried to keep an open mind, an unbiased mindset. I was in the jury, trying not to feel flooded by Matt Murdock's charm. Wait, what? And like I'll be sure to tell you later in this video, I somehow had a good time. Hallelujah, am I right? Well, no, I should be happy. I was happy, but as of writing this absurd intro, I saw previews for later issues of this weird and deathly run. I thought to myself, what's the point? I mean, a Spider-Man Juggernaut mix? First we had the Spider Goblin, now this?
Are you serious?
Oh, and I'm meant to believe it was the marriage that made him unrelatable. Our tale begins at Forest Hills in the distant past. We see a young Peter Parker learning to ride his bike with the help of his Uncle Ben. And with that help, he actually succeeds, if only for a few seconds. Uncle Ben picks up his nephew like he so often does, even beyond the grave when he's no longer around in the future, and gives him words of comfort. All the while, an odd little demon girl in the background steals their bike, heading straight back into the present day, right where we left off last issue. Time is now frozen, and Peter asks if they could do this later, but unfortunately for him, this Scion knows a lot about time and all its boundaries. For this is Cyrios, the inevitability of time. She makes it very clear, she's seen all of Peter's life, everything there was and will be, so if he wants to win, all he has to do is surprise her. The Scion then takes Peter as a form of distraction through each defining moment of his life, and to make it worse, he can't do a thing to stop anything. From Uncle Ben's death to the day Gwen Stacy perished, to the birth of Venom, to Captain Stacy's sacrifice, hell, Kraven's last hunt, Spider-Man's last stand, the Sin Eater saga, everything, even the moment he let the mugger go. But throughout this painful, life-redefining journey, Peter uses his greatest weapon, his brain. Granted, yes, he hates time travel and all the paradoxes and meaningless changeable rules, but a paradox is exactly what he needs. It's been made clear by now that if he attacks Cyrios directly, she just skips to another time. So what if he brings an attack indirectly? Perhaps one from the future? That's right, Peter Parker sets his mind to being in the right place at the right time and trusts his brilliance to handle the rest of the work, resulting in a brutal left hook to the jaw, sending the Scion flying across the room. And so, against all the odds, against fate itself, Spider-Man managed to win the challenge, resulting in another demon down and out. Future Spider-Man gives present-day Spider-Man a minor pep talk and leaves the scene. But Peter still has to deal with a very angry Scion, however. She is furious. No, beyond that, because for someone she deems a speck, nothing more than an insignificant bug, has just beaten her at her own game. So in complete pettiness, in complete pathetic rage, Cyrios splits Peter's consciousness, sending him into every moment of his life within the same instant. And with that means another read of RAGGADORR spent, another painful rebirth, sending Peter right back to where he started. To Shay and Randy, everything's normal, but to their friend, it's the very opposite. Peter's had enough. He can no longer pretend everything is okay, all the while his neurons are still stinging with death. He apologizes and leaves the table. Shay asks if everything's okay, but what could he possibly reply with? That he's now a champion of the Earth? That he's now died several times in the space of only a few days? And so he simply tries to play it off, but Shay doesn't budge. After everything, she still tries to make him feel better and decides to treat him to a picnic for tomorrow. As she leaves, Peter wonders to himself the odds of actually getting to have that date uninterrupted, which he soon realizes would be zero. So our lone protector of the Earth plans to call it off and to make it up to Shay after the entire Scion nonsense is finally dealt with. As Peter arrives back home, he's met with a very, very angry Aunt May. Peter completely forgot that he and May were meant to finish planning the Feast Community Day activities, and to make matters worse, that's not the only thing that slipped in his mind. Pete also forgot to ask Norman about the also important donation he promised to make, the one needed for the balance they owe to the vendors. May tries to stay level-headed, acknowledging that her nephew has a life of his own, but she needs to be able to depend on him to keep his word, especially considering the event is in a week, and they still have way too much to do before they are even close to finishing. But much to May's surprise, this sends Peter off. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. He snaps. For the first time in a while, Peter actually shows that Parker angst that has been missing for so long. He makes sure to quickly apologize for the way he spoke to May, and offers her a cab ride home. She tells him it's not necessary, but before she leaves, she asks Peter, the boy that she cares about more than anything, if everything is okay. But Peter brushes it off, saying he's simply just tired. As the door shuts, Peter is then standing alone in his apartment, surrounded by the darkness that now fills up his life completely. But he decides to listen to Shay's advice and try to talk to someone. That someone being Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. He starts off by apologizing for before, for the way that he's been a horrible friend, and offers to listen about her ex or whatever issues she may be having, but she'd rather not go into that chapter of her life. She would, however, like to know about how he's handling the whole champion thing. He goes over the recent events and all the pain he's suffering, how he's not even sure he can handle it anymore. Felicia somberly listens to the man she loved, to the man she still so desperately cares about, explain all the physical and mental stress he's had to endure, and so she does what any other good friend would do and offers some advice. She explains that there's so much we can't control in our lives, but happiness, the small moments of delight, we can claim those for ourselves, and we should, unapologetically. She then tells him to hang in there, for if there's anyone who can turn things around, Felicia knows it's Peter Parker, the amazing Spider-Man. The next day, Peter is feeling much better mentally thanks to the Black Cat and this newfound perspective he has on life. And so we finally get some honest-to-God relationship building for Peter and Shay, with the two actually being able to go on that picnic date. It's sweet, cozy, and a much-needed change of pace for our hero. And so amidst all this chaos in his life, he has found a small moment of delight, a small pocket of happiness, and the pair sit and share a moment with each other. Unbeknown to them that two SCIONs are keeping a close eye on Earth's champion. Calyx believes the time is right, they should challenge him now. However, Cyro wants to take a different approach, for this seemingly easy prey who's a mere beginner in the mystic arts has so far managed to defeat 3 of the SCIONs, so she believes it would be far wiser to study this champion, to try to understand the man behind the mask, Peter Parker. The Amazing Spider-Man issue 63 is actually good? Whoa, okay, just hold on a second, everyone. Just hear me out, okay? Hear me out. This issue marks the debut of Justina Ireland as the writer for this series, and I'm already seeing a massive improvement. Now, yes, it's still way too early to tell, and I understand all that, but if we view this issue as what it is, then I actually enjoyed reading a modern-day ASM comic, and I totally understand the concern and the skepticism of Ireland taking over. It's all very valid. I just found, though, the way she handled the point from where she was coming in, as well as her characterization of Peter, to be very satisfying. I fucking love the way Peter managed to outsmart Cyrios. Him not only acknowledging his brain as his greatest weapon, but also using it is so relieving, because we've been tortured with this brain-dead man-child version of Peter for so long, yet all of a sudden a new team comes in, save for that bastard Nick Lowe. God, I don't know how to explain it, but that man is like the human embodiment of that SpongeBob Splinter episode, just ew. And with that new team anyway, is a Peter who actually has some depth to him. He wasn't shallow, he wasn't one-dimensional, he wasn't a man-child, he was raw, had a bit of angst about him. I mean, he got pissed off at Aunt May. When's the last time we've seen Peter actually show that sort of aggression? Already from one issue, you can tell that where Zeb Wells' Peter would just sit in the corner and watch Paul and MJ go at it, this one would instead just beat the shit out of Paul. I really enjoyed the way it finally portrays Peter as someone who's experiencing death and rebirth continuously in the most painful ways possible. It makes sense he's forgetful or stressed or every other emotion under the sun. I couldn't stand before how they just glossed over it, so I'm glad that here in this issue we see that the psychological effects have finally begun for Peter, that such great physical and mental pain would actually cause. Not to mention that Justina Island within this issue managed to help remedy a major complaint I had about Shay's character. In the previous video, I had talked about my disappointment towards yet another soulless post-one-more-day love interest for Peter, and how, in short, I said, how am I meant to care about Shay and her relationship with Pete if the writers themselves don't even care? Well, in this issue, it did the complete opposite of what I was expecting. There was actual growth between the two of them. Peter, for once, actually put in effort, and we got a sweet moment between the pair that I actually, dare I say, felt earned? Like, it's crazy what happens when the writer puts just that little bit more effort in. I will say though, I'm a little confused on whether it's all for nothing due to a preview cover showing Spider-Man kissing the black cat, because if so, if Pete and Shay break up, it leaves me feeling very conflicted. On one hand, the relationship is another pointless pit stop for Peter in the post-one-more-day era, but on the other hand, there was at least, if this trend continues, a story there that was somewhat told. Now, I totally understand anyone who would deem this issue as a Spider-Man misery compilation, but where this differs to Zeb Wells' cuckold fanfiction is that Island uses his hardships of the past as a way to almost frame the entire issue, and in doing so, it results in some great character moments for Peter. Now, using the pain and the grief of Peter's failures from the past was crucial to really emphasize who he is at his core, a man who simply never gives up. We've seen it time and time again throughout his career, from If This Be My Destiny to Happy Birthday by JMS, which this issue took a fair bit from, to countless other stories, and I'm glad that this issue managed to not only harken back to that aspect of the character, but also to display it in full force with that awesome knockout punch. But I will quickly say before we move on, I did have one minor complaint, and that was that the rules of this fight were pretty easy to miss. I noticed that a lot of other people weren't really properly aware of this fight's guidelines. The Demon Lady literally says surprise me to win in a way that I thought even was implying for more than just one cool ass punch, so I would have liked that they would have been a bit more clearer with that, but Jesus Christ, one minor complaint. One minor complaint for a modern ASM comic is insanely good. I used to pray for times like this. I get if you'd count her killing Spider-Man out of pettiness as one too, but I don't know, it just seemed really in character for this specific Scion. And speaking about the other Scions though, I'm really enjoying the build-up we're getting for them, especially Syra. I'm actually interested to see what direction they take with her. But before I forget as well, there's one more thing. I wanted to also mention that the artwork in this was brilliant. Genuinely, it's some of my most favorite art within this entire volume. To me, no modern Spidey artist, in my opinion, can come close to comparing a Patrick Gleason or Marco Cicchetto's work, but I was really liking the way Melnick's pencils felt like a refined rendition of John Romita Jr.'s style back when he was actually good, mixed with his own personal unique twist, and if I'm being honest, I'd love to see him actually become the main artist within this title. I think that he's got what it takes to be a great Spider-Man penciler. I felt that his artwork was really dynamic, and that's something you need if you're going to take over Spider-Man. He was able to capture the more somber scenes and the more action-packed scenes in a way that felt so satisfying. I feel like if he's given the chance, he'd really thrive in that role. But lastly, I wanted to take a quick second to just say how much I liked and appreciated the way the Black Cat was written in this issue. She actually felt like a human being again. I loved her and Peter's conversation in this, and the way that she helps remind him to not deny ourselves the joys in life. It was such a sweet, well-earned moment. After all he's been through, I feel like he needed to hear this, and almost the readers of ASM as well needed to hear that. It's a great character building moment for the both of them, but especially for Felicia, and I liked how her words managed to change Peter's perspective on his own life, and how it resulted in him actually giving it a f and putting in an effort with Shay. This is what we need. We need a writer who cares about the characters they're writing. And I know it's still early days, but for the love of God, like Felicia herself said, we've got to claim the small moments of happiness in our lives. And for me, this issue, at the very least, was definitely one of them. A pleasant surprise within the decaying title of The Amazing Spider-Man. A surprise I hope once again becomes the norm of this once great comic series, because this character deserves it. The Amazing Spider-Man deserves a good comic book. So whether Justina Ireland is the person to deliver that is still yet to be seen. But for now, let's all just try to enjoy this small delight.